Let's see if this works.
Oh.
No, this was before.
Oh, yeah.
How do we get into the YouTube thing? Like, do you have to send us a thing?
So this should be like...
Public, right? Should just...
Yeah, it should be...
Well, I went... Oh, here we go. Oh my god, it's playing fucking ads.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It's playing some like golfing ad.
I should turn monetization off.
I don't know, maybe we should monetize.
Nah, fuck it. It's probably just like this, the opening ad.
Right.
Oh, I think there's people.
Yes. Hi.
Hey, welcome everyone. We're not professional streamers here. This took us a little bit to set up. We got people in the chat though, which is cool. There we go. Sweet. So you guys found a campsite?
Yeah.
Through up Starlink?
Yep.
Yeah, paid camp. Major lame bummer.
Certain areas of the country just sort of becomes necessary if you want to enjoy certain aspects of certain areas. Like California can be a little challenging, the same way New England can be kind of tough too. Not a lot of free camping. Obviously, California just attracts a ton of people, and if everyone was free camping, it just gets a little unruly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in Morro Bay, California, just above SLO, San Luis Obispo. For people who know the area, they know it's great for birding. That's why we're here.
Yes.
We're fishing. We're just birders.
If you really think Ty Loops makes fly fishing films, what they're really doing in the off season is birding.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The science is there all along, man, if you watch the videos.
We added over 20 birds, 27 birds to our life list today. So for all the bird nerds out there, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good day.
Hell yeah. Sick. Well, hey, everyone who's joining us right now, this took us, it was a whole thing trying to get this live stream figured out. But we got Chase and Amy from Tight Loops joining us. And they're gone. Oh no. What happened? It's probably their Starlink. That's all right though. We'll keep it rolling. Yeah, we're doing a Q&A here. We basically had reached out to you guys on Instagram just to ask some questions about the Hope and High Water film that we did with Tight Loops. And so we got a bunch of questions that we're going to go through, and obviously you guys are welcome to chip in the chat. There they are. They're back. Starlink, man. What's going on? Let's see who we've got, though. We've got hello from England. Greetings from Montana, Texas, Tennessee, Colorado, Alberta, Blue Ridge. Oh my gosh, my mom and dad are in the chat. That's great.
Oh,
Alaska.
sorry.
Some steelhead people. Sweet. I was just giving everyone the explanation of the Q&A here. We yeah. Oh no, they're gone again. But anyways, guys, for all of you who are tuning in right now, just to give you an idea, this is basically where I work and where I do all my editing. I've got a big monitor here in front of me. You guys can't see, but this is my room and also the Wildfly office where we get all the editing done. You guys keep going in and out.
Yeah.
It looks good now.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right, sweet.
Okay, we probably lost you for the last couple minutes there.
We'll get this sorted out. Going live during the NFC Championship game, very bold move, of course. Yeah, I honestly didn't even realize that the game was tonight. I've been pretty checked out of sports in the last couple years, which is unfortunate because I grew up playing sports, grew up playing basketball and everything. So, but we'll be tuning into the Super Bowl. Don't you worry.
So it's possibly obstructed. Let me go move.
There you are.
You can tell them.
Do you guys think it's like a Starlink issue?
It could be. Amy's gonna go move it. It says that we're having some like obstruction issue.
Stand by, guys.
Can you hear us now?
It should be in a more clear zone. Hopefully.
All right, there we go. All right, should we dive into some questions, guys? You want to give,
Yeah.
or Chase,
you
you want to
can
give us a
hear
little rundown of the plan for tonight?
Yeah. Well, assuming that you guys hear us and we don't disappear again momentarily, I think the plan is we'll probably just do our best to answer all the questions we got over Instagram. I think it's a small enough number of questions that we can probably get through all of them. And then while we're talking, if anyone has any additional questions that either come up from what we're talking about or just spur of the moment, try and save those to the end. We'll say when we've gotten through all these questions and then put them in the chat. And we'll try and respond to them. I mean, if there's something that's like really needs to be addressed, like in the moment, a follow up to something we're already talking about, feel free to put it in the chat, I guess. And we can see the chat and we'll try and answer it as we go. But in general, try and hold additional questions so we can see them all at once and don't lose track of them at the end.
Yeah, definitely. First off, for anyone who has bought the film and watched the film, huge thank you. I think we've had just under 3,000 people go and donate to the film project. This is like a totally new experiment for us with releasing a film, and it's been really cool to see the support from all of you with, whether it's $1 or it's $250, donating to the project. This was fully self-funded by by us, and it was a small crew. We really wanted to make something that was like really special, and so that's the goal. That's why we're releasing it a little differently. And then we're also donating some of that money back to Western Native Trout Initiative. So a lot of it will go back to, native trout in the West. So for any of you guys who haven't watched it, there's a link in the description here. You can go check it out. wild-fly.com/movie. But let's jump into some questions. This is a fun one. So this is from Gatewood Brown. He said, Scotty, you've been spending some time around some stellar rigs. The new Tight Loops truck, camper, and Will Phelps' van are elite. Any plans to build out your own new vehicle in the future? Chase hinted in a recent video that he should. Great question. And the short answer is yes. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I guess for all you guys listening to the stream here, I did get a new vehicle. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but it will be where I'm working on like a build out here in the next month. So there should be something probably in the next month and a half or so that we'll get to share with you guys. But I'm friggin' stoked.
Such a tease, Scotty.
Dude, this is a hot spot.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It was like you guys said in the film. It's like it's terrifying when you buy a new car, or not a new car, but you buy a car. Period. I had only had the Pilot, which I bought from my parents for pretty cheap, and so, the thought of I never thought I'd like actually buy a car, for whatever reason, but it finally came to that point where I think it was worth the investment, and hopefully the plans this year, a lot of the content will be around that. So I'm very, very excited to build out something. You guys definitely played some inspiration.
You've officially been influenced.
Yep, been influenced by the influencers.
Also, if you ask us something and we're just blank over here, the audio is still cutting out a lot on your end for us. I don't know if ours is still cutting out for you.
Is for anyone listening in the chat, can you guys just let us know if the audio is coming in clean or not for me?
Yeah.
Because
can people hear us? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah. I mean, when I tested it earlier, there was some choppiness and then it was working. Okay. Everyone said we're good.
Okay.
Can you guys, is it still choppy on y'all's end? Money. All right. How about now, guys? For chasing it.
When we can hear you, it's great, and then it just completely cuts out.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, we'll just keep rolling with it.
Sorry, it might be a little weird.
That's okay. But yeah, the truck should be pretty sweet. Once we get it all dialed in. Blame Elon Musk. Yeah, absolutely, dude. This is a Starlink problem right here. There we go. Yeah, what sort of advice do you guys have for me with a vehicle build out? Being that you guys are pros and live out of your truck full time.
What do you think? What if we open it on like your cover California?
If you try to open it on YouTube, there's gonna be a delay, so I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it muted.
I love.
Hate that. Hate that.
What? This?
Hate that.
Well, that's what I did.
That didn't really help.
Does this help at all, guys? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you right now.
You can?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not gonna be coming through this mic, but I'll just run this for now. Maybe that'll be better. But I'm coming in smooth.
Yeah, now you are.
I mean, right? Yeah, but whenever you're coming in good, you're always coming in good. But
yeah,
so far so good.
Cool.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, and like they said in the comments, blame Elon.
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, that's.
Right. We'll roll with this. Yeah. So, anyways, I don't know. That's about all I'm gonna say for the vehicle build out. But great question. The next one from Scotty's Gone Walkabout, who's another YouTuber. He said, given that both of your channels are high quality cinematic films, how do you find navigating the YouTube space where the algorithm seems to reward quick, catchy, fast-paced content? You guys just released an hour and 40-minute film. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
How do we find navigating the YouTube space? The algorithm does not reward the kind of content we make. We just make no money from it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess there's kind of two things going on. One, we just ignore whatever the recommendations are about the algorithm. For the most part, like, we don't let that control what we make. It certainly is always in the back of our minds. We're always nervous that we'll invest a bunch of time in a project and then it won't get seen by people, and it's not really our fault. It's just kind of, it doesn't perform well because it's not ticking whatever boxes for the algorithm. But as artists, and filmmakers, like, we just can't let that control the vision for what we make. We just got to make what we're going to make and hope that it finds an audience. It always is a bummer if for some reason something that you think is really good doesn't perform well, because it really, the performance side of it doesn't matter in terms of like oh, the number of views makes me feel good or whatever. It's just we make work and we want people to see it.
Yeah.
You know, when something doesn't perform, it's just a bummer because you're going, oh man, like less people are seeing this. There's less people who are going to be inspired or interested by this. You know, it changes the world less when less people see it. And as filmmakers, when we're telling stories, we're hoping to find an audience for those stories and hope that they have an impact on an audience. So that's a bummer. But also, you know, the other thing is, and we talk about this all the time with you, Scotty, is that like, I don't know in reality how much the fast-paced stuff is rewarded or isn't rewarded by the algorithm. The algorithm's a little bit confusing to me, and I think long-form stuff does really well, actually. I mean, you talk about it, Scotty, like some of your best performers are some of the longer videos on the channel, and same for us. So I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, I know that that's what people say, and I'll say it to people sometimes too, that YouTube is looking for like high retention rate, fast-paced, shorter form content, but I don't know. There's tons of, you can go find hiking videos on YouTube that are like 4.5 hours long of just someone like hiking in silence, and they've got millions of views. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's like aspects of maybe like aspects of YouTube, you know, itself, like but I think beyond actually YouTube, what more of it is like human psychology, thinking about like what is someone interested in clicking on in the first place, and then what is someone interested in watching, and if you know, it also comes down to like just good storytelling. If you can just tell a good story, whether it's 5-minute video or it's a hour 40-minute film, I think, like you're saying, we want to just make stuff that is true to us, and it will find the right audience. Oftentimes, or sometimes, the algorithm, which, you know, essentially just or feeds people who might be interested in your videos, and, you know, sometimes those videos just like don't hit. You know, you make a really good video and it just doesn't hit the right audience or doesn't hit as many people. But I think like towing a fine line of keeping the creative integrity of the project without because we're not gonna make Mr. Beast videos. You know, I think a lot of people, like millions of people, are trying to make Mr. Beast videos because they've seen how successful it is. I think he tells like really good stories in his own way, but I think if you're just trying to do it to fit that mold, that's not really going to get you anywhere. What really comes down to is like it's got to resonate with you, and then over time learning and fine-tuning your craft of filmmaking and storytelling.
Yeah, it definitely needs to satisfy us personally and creatively for it to really be worth making anyway.
And I will say there are some things that are affected in terms of the form in which we tell a story. I don't think that thinking about the algorithm or the constraints of YouTube change like what stories we tell, but certainly little things like trying to get a hook right in the opening. I think before the YouTube space, that wasn't like a necessity for a video or a film or a story. You could have a long, slow burn where nothing really happens for half an hour. You know, when someone goes to the movie theater to watch a film, they're there in that seat to see that film through its course. When someone's on YouTube, they can click off with just a tiny little move of their wrist to something more interesting, you know, so that they're like, oh, you got to get a hook right at the beginning. You got to retention right in the opening of a film for someone to not click on the abundance of other options, you know, and that's probably always been true of television versus film or something, when someone can just change the channel, you know, like the form in which you tell a story has got to be a little bit snappier, a little bit more upfront, et cetera. So I know obviously we're thinking about those sorts of things that just because it's a different space. YouTube is a whole different arena, mostly because of what's at the fingertips of the viewer. They're alone watching something on their phone or on their screen. There's no like social pressure to like, oh, I'll have to see this through. Like people can just do whatever they want, whenever they want. They can click off the second they get bored or whatever. So you certainly do have to consider that more than we did traditionally making videos that were meant for audience who was there to like for sure sit down and see it through, you know.
The cool thing about this film though was we wanted it to feel more like a movie that you would go see at a theater. And I remember the intro scene that, you know, I just like had the idea of like, what if we did more of a slow burn intro? And I remember sending you a little cut, but then right away I I was like, man, this is too slow. Like this isn't, this isn't like what I'm used to putting on YouTube. But I really enjoyed how the film opened because it's it's just a little more like there's tension in it, but it's not like in your face right away. It's like, hey, it also sets the mood of this is going to be a longer, slower film. So like let's sit back and let's take it all in. So I don't know. I thought the intro turned out kind of cool. It was like anti what you would think with what YouTube maybe tells you or the YouTube gurus.
Yeah. And I guess actually that transitions pretty well into the next question from Bo Benyon. Is the film going to be released on YouTube at some point, or is it going to stay the way it is? I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, Scotty, or just it'll stay a great mystery for now.
Yeah, it will be released on YouTube at some point this year. We we haven't really decided on a date yet, but when it's released on YouTube, it's we are going to be including everyone who donates $50 plus to the paywall and watches it. You'll get your name into the credits when it does go live on YouTube. So that's just a little bonus. But besides that, yeah, I think we haven't really settled on a date, but we wanted to again, we put a lot of money and a lot of resources and time into this project, and we wanted to put it up to you guys, the community, everyone watching, to really help support it. I think Chase, you said in one of the podcasts that we did, like, we're not living lives of the rich and famous out here. We're just trying to make more movies, and I think that's really what this whole experiment was about. It's like, how can we get creative with a different funding method than, because frankly, in our industry, in the fly fishing world, like, when you think of like sponsors and whatnot, I mean, it's a very small industry, and sponsors are not able to like fund stuff. If we were to go into a different industry, and it'd be a completely different story. But in our world, it's like you got to get a little creative and whatnot. But yeah, long story short, short story long, it'll eventually be on YouTube. All right, this next one is from Gabriel Lopez Smith. He's asking, how do you find new areas to fish? What planning goes into one of your multi-day float trips? And how do you manage filming and fishing so you never miss the moment? There's another question on this too, but yeah, this is
Yeah.
Onyx. I'm just kidding.
Gosh, yeah.
Onyx, but
yeah. How do you find new areas to fish?
Can I share a funny story really quick?
Yeah, go for it.
This is something that Chase, you had mentioned to me like after we had hung out or something. But one of the videos that I'd put out a couple years ago, you basically went on there and took a bunch of screenshots and triangulated the mountain ranges in the background to find the spot where we were fishing, and you found it, which is crazy.
Nothing is safe.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that place before in my life. Even once I found it, like I'd never even heard the name, but just by like 3D Google Earth mapping around, I knew the state that it was in, and then like finding prominent landmarks, and you had like flipped the images backwards so that they wouldn't be easy to find, and I still found it, and I didn't even have any intention of. I still haven't even been there to fish.
Yeah.
This was like 2 years ago. I still
fish to know.
Yeah, I just love to
all
know
potential
where places are.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it's just like, I mean, you play that GeoGuessr game, like it's just like what you like. I don't know. You love finding new places and scouring maps, and
so that's one way to find new places to fish, is just like absolute like NSA style deep dive onto YouTubers' videos of fishing spots, enemy of the state satellite tree style, and pinpoint locations that way. But I don't know. I'd say you find new waters to fish by just going to new places that you can see on a map, or you've maybe heard some rumor of or whatever, and like be totally willing to just get skunked. I think we enjoy being outside enough and exploring enough, and like that it doesn't really matter to us whether or not we end up getting into good fishing or not when we're out exploring. I think the reward is just kind of the exploring in and of itself. So like my biggest recommendation, everyone who fishes already knows a little bit about, in general, like, oh, well, this is a tributary of a river that has trout in it and fishes well. So you have a good idea that there's probably going to be fish there. It's not a total shot in the dark, usually, when you're looking at a map and trying to pick some place, like, most of the streams flowing out of the Rocky Mountains are probably going to be cold and there might be fish in them, et cetera, et cetera. And you can always, most of the time, you can find a little bit of information about places, even the really like nerdy deep divey fisheries science reports and stuff. If you find the name of a waterway and you start Googling it online, you can usually find some information that will indicate to you, even if it's not through a fishing specific forum, that there are fish in that river, or there have been surveys in that river that show fish, etc. So you can have a good idea going into it that you'll have a chance at catching fish. So yeah, you're not starting from zero when you just look at a map, but there's some places that like you just won't find a lot of information about. You're really not going to have any idea if the fishing is going to be good, or maybe there's literally nothing online about it. But we think it's just kind of fun to go out and see. It's not like a day wasted, if you go out driving some forest road, scouting water and wading around in the water and flicking flies around. Like, it's half as much fun as it is catching fish. So I'd say my biggest recommendation just for finding new water is just like, don't be afraid to fail. I don't know, like be interested in going out.
Manage expectations, I guess, and enjoy the whole adventure.
Yeah, it's like, I get that it's like a tough decision if you've got like, I've just got the weekend, to fish, and it's like, do I go to Old Faithful, like my favorite spot, where like I know I'm going to get into fish, or do I like go chasing some other stream like up in the mountains where I might not catch anything? I know that time is precious, so I understand that, but at the end of the day, it's boring fishing the same places all the time. Sometimes, even if you blow a day off and don't catch any fish, it's one more spot on the map you can look at and be like, man, I've got a better understanding of this landscape. And that information you get from that day out fishing where things if you didn't catch any fish, or if you did, it goes into your sort of mental Rolodex of what types of places do fish well, when they fish well, if there be fish there, and you bring that information to the next time you go exploring somewhere. I don't think there's really any wasted days outside.
Yeah, it's difficult, man. I think one of the best things to start with, though, is trying to find like a bigger source of water. So, for example, you could look at like the Snake River in Wyoming. You'd be like, that is a massive river. It's super easy to find on a map, and just start with that whole valley. It's very easy to find information about it. Okay, the Snake River has Yellowstone cutthroat in it, Snake River cutthroat in it. And it also has, in like different sections, brown trout, rainbows, whatever. But find a river like that, and then, these fish are migratory. They're going to move up and down the streams. So if you don't want to fish huge water, you don't have a boat, go up one of the tributaries, and that tributary might have another tributary, as an example. So I always like finding like a big source of water like that, and then, going a little bit further up. Because a lot of people don't go up further into the tributaries. They think like the main rivers where all the fish are going to be. But I mean, like on this trip, all the rivers we fished essentially were tributaries to bigger rivers on the Hope and High Water trip. So, yeah, this film is a great example of like us failing in real time, and like showing up, and obviously conditions had to play, but also the bigger fish were not in some of the rivers that we expected them to be in. So that could be a bunch of factors.
Yeah. And then, the last part of that question was, how do you manage filming and fishing so you never miss the moment? There's really no good answer other than just roll on everything. Yeah. Just fill up cards.
And we miss plenty of moments.
Yeah. And then you're still going to miss stuff. And sometimes you miss even the best stuff. Sometimes because you're just too busy enjoying the moment, or because you were, reverse record something, or
for people that have seen Big Land, a film that we shot in 2017,
18,
I think we went in 2017, but we missed so many incredible moments because it was the first time we were getting into fish, and it was so exciting, and so many people were like had fish on, and we were scrambling, and we still talk about like some of the
Yeah.
takes that we could have got on film if we
Mhm.
were set up. But
And I will say that that's generally the case in how we mostly make our films, and Scotty as well, which is like essentially by ourselves. When the fishing gets good and you're also the person fishing and you're also the person filming, a lot of times you have that conflict and you'll miss stuff. The real secret to how do you catch everything is hire someone like Will Phelps to just be a dedicated camera person the whole time, which is really tough for us to do. And, for Scotty too. And I'm sure a lot of the films I know a lot of the films on Wildfly's channel, Scotty's playing like more time behind the camera and doesn't get to fish as much in some of the areas. And like, that's tough to do if like fishing's really good and it's in like a new and cool place. And like, you just want to be the one getting on fish also. But like, yeah, the key to really getting stuff on camera is just to have somebody who's just on the camera and they're not doing anything else.
Mhm.
They're not switching off to fish. And yeah, that can be a tough sacrifice to make, but coming out with great footage can be a reward in and of itself. But essentially, that's how we did it on this film. Scotty and us, we picked up the camera for like 5% of Hope and High Water. A couple B-roll shots here and there when nothing important was going on, etc. Stuff around camp where it was inconsequential. But like when we were on the water, none of us were really shooting much. It was Will was on the camera, and that was all he's doing. Will never took a cast the entire trip. He didn't fish for 1 second.
And even he's when we're not on the water, he's still on it, knowing like I need to be recording so much of this because there's so many little things that come up just in between when you're not actually fishing, and some of that stuff really helps to tell a story. So
that is one of the most difficult things about it is when do you turn it off? Like when do you get back to camp and it's like some moment could happen. Like someone could say something, there could be a sound bit that you capture that ends up being, in the film. But I think there is a certain point where you just have to be okay with being like, all right, we got what we got for the day. We're not going to get everything. I think that's a big thing to know is like, you're not going to get every eat. You're going to miss stuff. You're not going to get every moment. If you're like, oh man, try to re-say that. Like a lot of times it's like, oh, well, it kind of lost the mystery or like the magic to it. But then at the end of the day, I think it's just a sacrifice. Like you got to know going in that you're just going to sacrifice fishing time. And if that sacrifice is worth it to you because of making a cool film or whatever, then that's great. Then you should be okay with it. But it is tricky. So, but it's fun. I think also that's the other thing, like that. I think I put this in the Instagram post recently. Like for a while, I felt like a piece of guilt in filming for a while, and maybe some of that's just like imposter syndrome. But I think I've realized more and more now how much I actually enjoy the filming and like how much that really brings me joy on the river and the experience of the trip. And so totally being able to lean into that and not having any shame of like, oh, we should be enjoying the moment. Because like in reality, it's really, that's enjoying the moment as well, is capturing stuff on camera or just being there to capture whatever. And then going to tell the story.
Yeah, and I feel like that gets easier every year too.
Mm-hmm.
You catch so many fish in your life. That urgency to like catch fish and to fish like lessons, at least for me, every year. Where like a day out on the water, just watching your buddies catch fish and filming it is like just as rewarding as fishing yourself. Whereas like 10 years ago, I might have been way more crazy about like, I got to get one. Like I got to get in the water. Like I can't handle just watching someone. It's too much, but maybe that's age. Maybe that's maturity. Maybe it's neither of those things. I don't know. But I imagine that 30 years from now, I'll be happy to just like go walk the edge of the stream and watch fish rising and go home, and have just as, I think it's just kind of part of the natural evolution. Like you don't have to catch them all, at least it feels that way to me every year more and more.
Yeah. I've heard of the natural progression of an angler, and it's like at first you just want to catch a fish, and I might butcher this, but it's like at first you want to just catch fish, and then it's like you want to catch a lot of fish, and then you want to catch big fish, and then at a certain point you want to maybe chase like a specific fish or a native fish, and that's your thing. And then at maybe another point it's just like you just want to be there, you just want to like get out on the water. And I feel like that progression has happened in my life, and I'm sure in y'all's too. And I'm sure everyone, people listening, if you guys have been doing it for a while, you've probably gone through those stages where you're like, just put me on a stalker stream. I'm gonna rip as many stalkers out of this creek as I can, and I'm gonna have a ball, and that's totally okay. So do what makes your heart happy, everyone. That's the biggest thing. All right, let's go. Actually, let me see. There was like a bunch of questions in the chat.
Mhm.
Someone said, Scotty, are you ever gonna get your mom her own warehouse for all the merch? Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully either this year or next year we'll have to get out of the house because it's pretty full, and I do feel bad for my parents, but my mom loves it. So, someone asked, we were just talking about Big Land. We don't have to go super in depth, but what do you think made Big Land such a success, and such an amazing film? The location, the filmography, etc.
Well, I mean, I want to say it's a combination of all those things. Probably, I think what made it good, or what made us feel like it was good, or when I reflect on it, what I think makes it good is just that it was very, I mean, it was very true and genuine. You know, that trip was phenomenally impactful on us in our lives. We tried to tell that story as honestly as possible, and I think that probably just comes through in the story. I mean, you know, all those peripheral things always help with any story or film. Like if it looks good, or it's got a great location, or is good payoff with big fish in the end, or you know, all that stuff obviously like makes something engaging. But I think at the end of the day, it was just like, yeah, a real honest look at like a big adventure, an adventure that was like way out of our comfort zone. And I think we were really honest in sort of portraying the fact that we didn't really know what we were doing, and there was nothing particularly special about us. We didn't have, you know, a bunch more money or a bunch more experience. We were just like, we want to go to this wild remote place, and we're just going to figure out how to do it, and we're not going to take no for an answer. And we did it, and we told that story. And I think, yeah, everyone can relate to whatever adventure it is in your life that feels really big to you. You know, there's much bigger adventures out there than a couple weeks in a canoe in Labrador, and there's much smaller adventures out there. But how big that and impactful that adventure is on your life is really up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you nailed it. I think too, the like when you're saying it's true and it's like done by you guys are just like, you guys weren't like, we've done this before, or like we're pros, we're gonna just,
Yeah.
we know how to run through the system. The process of the film, it's so long, of you guys actually doing the research and finding the crew and assembling the whole thing to then go on it. It makes that reward at the end so much better than if you just were to go out there and be like, oh, we went to Labrador, caught a bunch of brook trout, here you go, enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think, and we always try and do that in our stories. Like, we do get people complaining and comments about like, it's 20 minutes in and I haven't seen a fish. You know, and people who are there because they just want to like, they just want the Labrador fish porn. You know, they're just like dying to see some big fish or whatever. For me, I think the story is a lot more interesting when you can watch the process leading up to it and all that effort that goes into it, etc. And so we try and put that in our films because we like to see that kind of stuff. Yeah, viewership may have their own opinions about it, but I like to think that's a good part of it.
Yeah, definitely. Some guy asked, Derek Knoll asked, Chase, which salmonoid are you most jonesing to illustrate next?
Man. I mean, the one that we just released, the Baja California rainbow trout, was really cool. That was a really cool looking fish. That was fun. I don't, you know, I know which ones I have to illustrate next. And I guess this is kind of a scoop on For Wild's Sake. So there's 5 more that I've illustrated for the next episodes of For Wild's Sake. And there's actually a question later in here if For Wild's Sake is coming back. So I'll just answer it now. For Wild's Sake is coming back. It never really left.
Never left.
We shot a lot more than what's been seen all in that time period, you know, when we were living in the van, etc. So stuff that you haven't seen isn't because we haven't gone out and caught more fish or haven't shot anything yet. We shot a bunch of stuff. We've just been really slow in getting it out because it's just complicated and whatever. I don't know. I've talked about this a million times in a million different forums, why it takes so long, but it just does. So For Wild's Sake is coming back hopefully soon. We got a couple other videos that are going to come out first. The next fish that's going to be on For Wild's Sake, which I've already illustrated, our Bear River cutthroat and our lake cutthroat.
Utah, baby.
Yeah, subspecies, kind of some weird mixture between Bonneville cutthroat and Yellowstone cutthroat. It's a long and crazy story, which is one of the reasons these episodes are taking so long. It's quite difficult to tell this story actually because it's so
And
complicated.
it's all in Chase's brain. This is why it's taking forever.
And then after that, we spent most of that summer in and around Wyoming, honestly, in the areas that Hope and High Water were shot in. Our first time in those areas that we kind of we lured Scotty into going to some of these places with our stories of grand fishing from the production of For Wild's Sake. And that's Yellowstone cutthroat and Snake River cutthroat. So those have both been illustrated. I've illustrated them before, but these are new updated illustrations that I think are better. I just have more experience under my belt at this point, able to tackle those a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one, what's the last one I illustrated after that?
Yellowstone, two Bear River.
West Slope cutthroat is next on For Wild's Sake. And then after that, there's going to be Lahontan cutthroat, Gila trout, and a unique strain of Colorado River cutthroat trout that we found in the La Salle Mountains outside of Moab. Yeah. And then after that, I don't know. There's a million things on my bucket list of like fish I want to see, fish we want to chase, fish I want to illustrate. But those other 5 are already done. And then I think the next one I'm going to illustrate after that is the Gila trout, which I'm excited about because Gila trout are really cool. Anyone who's seen one knows they're really cool. They're kind of like, it's like an Apache trout, but if it had the spotting pattern of a Snake River cutthroat or something, super cool. So yeah, that's the next one.
Yeah. I've seen some of the footage, guys. Well, I will give you guys a little insight. When we were stuck in the camper because it was pouring rain on us for however many days, we had show and tell. And so we were sitting right where Chase and Amy were sitting. And we just pulled open the laptops and Chase was showing us like footage in Premiere from this trip, and it was sick. I can't wait to see. I knew you had a few sequences cut up, so I'm really, really stoked to see that series. I think it's just like a really important series too for people to learn about native trout and in our country. You know, just like kind of changes your perspective on, I don't know, what kind of fish you want to go for. At least for me.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here in the chat. Yo, how'd you guys afford to paying Phelps for Hope and High Water?
It's good. By the skin of our
I don't know. Me.
It was. I mean, that's one of those things. It's like we want to pay Will what his rate is, which we did, and because he's super talented. But we also knew that was worth the investment. You know, a lot of this was like a risk and like a bet on ourselves, essentially, of how can we make the movie the best. That's essentially like what it came down to. And so I think actual dollar amount, we're like, yeah, we can make this work. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, it just got added to the expense list, you know, like anything. And I guess for us, it's also super important as creators and creative people to make sure that we're paying, you know, like probably less so now, but I feel like when we first started, there was a lot of like, hey, like you're creative, I'm a creative, like let's do a trade, let's like make a deal. Like, you know, it's important to us, I think, to make sure that we're paying, even if they're our friends, what their rate is, to just keep a certain like, I don't know, level of respect. And
yeah, I mean, so much so
you want to pay other creatives what they're
so much so that I would say at this point, like Will's probably been paid more money off this project than any of us, Scotty included. You know, like we're still paying off all the expenses that it took to produce it. But that's how important it is to make sure that not only that like your friends get what they deserve, but also that like, yeah, you pay for what you get, and Will's one of the best. So there's like absolutely no option to like skimp on that expense, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, shout out Phelps. I wish he was here. He's bike packing in Patagonia right now, so he's doing cool things.
Absolute psycho in Patagonia.
Absolute beast. All right, let's see here.
Someone asked
Alright.
if we tie flies or buy them. I feel like that's a quick one. Chase ties flies. I'm terrible at tying them. What
Same.
about you, Scott?
No, not really. I honestly, I feel like I have my tying stuff literally right over here, but it's just been sitting in a bucket. Um, I feel like my time right now in my life is better spent working on films, and that's like what I'm excited to do. So I don't tie. I wish I that's like one of those things I'm like, man, I want to at some point in my life get really into tying, but right now it doesn't make sense for me. But I appreciate everyone who does tie. Okay, let's see here. Another question. Tim Landerfeld asked, "Can you walk us through the mental and physical process of filming on a river when you found an area you want to include in a film?" My wife, who doesn't fly fish, looks forward to your content because of the tremendous storytelling. She asks me regularly if Scotty has any new videos to watch. Oh, that's so sweet. So yeah, can you walk us through the mental and physical process of filming on a river when you found an area you want to include in a film? Man, that's hard to like walk through the whole thing.
Well, I can,
It varies so much, right?
I can say one thing. It's similar to the process that we go through just when fishing an area. It's not really so different how you approach it through filmmaking. So like, if we see a rising fish, well, first things first, you get to the water, you just stop and you look around. You just observe. Like that's step one. Like don't wade right out into the water and just start casting left and right. Maybe you would know that advice already. Maybe you haven't. No one's ever told you that. But in general, that's sort of the way we like to approach water. Is like don't be in a hurry to get in there. There could be a fish like 6 inches off the bank, and you're just going to tromp right through it. Like just stop from a sneaky vantage point where you're not visible over the water if you're high up above it, or just stay back if you're right at level with it, and just watch. Spend 10 minutes just watching the water, see if you can see any fish rising, start assessing what areas look the best, where you should start. So we do the same thing with filmmaking. We just stop and we step back and we watch the water. Maybe we just get some B-roll of the location, whatever. If we see a rising fish, we're going to want to film that fish rising to naturals way before we ever make a cast to it. Because if you end up blowing it and you don't catch that fish, like that moment of that fish rising, not knowing that you're there is never going to come back. And that's like great footage to have. It's the same thing if we were just fishing, like stop and watch a fish rising for a while, get a good idea of the sort of rhythm that it's rising at, where it's rising at, so that when you make your cast, you can make it count. And then same thing, once you start fishing, you kind of like pick the water apart, whether you're moving from the bank outwards or upstream, or, kind of methodically like pick apart the best water. You do the same thing with filming. I don't think that there's anything all that different filming other than fishing, other than making sure that the camera person is like fully set up, because it's very easy to be like, all right, it's time to film, and someone puts a cast in before the camera's even like focused in the right place or something, and you botch your shot. Like communication and camera person's really
like
important.
Trying to like, all right, I'm gonna cast straight up and to the left. Like you're always trying to communicate with like a very I don't know.
That's not like it's
not always like that, but
it's not like a big picture difference, but in the like minutia of each moment, like big thing, like if you make a cast and like a fish misses it, instead of just like casting it right back out, like stop and reset, make sure like camera guys like back in, it's like back focused where they need to be, and everyone's ready to go. Because the thing about these sorts of moments is it's like it'll never happen the same way twice. So if you miss it once, it's just gone forever. Which when you're just out fishing by yourself is fine. You're taking in all those memories. It doesn't really matter. But if your goal is to make like a film, a high fidelity film with good shots, you really need to like take your time to make sure the setup is good. So like that's something that I know at least Amy, you're in my like shorthand when we're filming is like really strong, where we know for sure, like, if you miss a fish or something, like you do not cast at it again right away. And that might be good advice just for angling too, to just like rest a fish after you miss it or whatever. But if I'm by myself, that as soon as I've missed a fish, it's
Well,
going right back on the water in front of it
so
just to
there's
see. You know?
kind of a funny story, and this is a film that we're working on. It hasn't come out yet, but a little sneak about a situation while we were filming. I was casting. It was middle of the day. We were fishing mouse flies for brook trout, and it got to a point where I could not have my fly in the water because the fish were taking it so rapidly, and like two fish coming out at the same time, like slamming into each other. So I had to keep it off of the water, and we knew as soon as it hit the water, a fish was coming up to take it. So Chase, we were like communicating every single cast. I'm gonna cast straight up 10 feet to the left, like, like next to that boulder, like every cast.
There was no time for like find the fly on the water, zoom in, get your focus. Like it was like within seconds. So you had to be like so dialed. And we're always trying the holy grail for anyone filming fish eating flies is like to be as tight in on that as possible so you can get all the details. When you're working in a little area like that, staring at a screen on your camera, trying to make sure, and water all looks the same for the most part if there's no stress. Knowing, and then for the angler to also make a cast into that like 2 square foot spot that you needed to. Yeah, that's really the only difference is just that communication. Really, you're fishing in tandem with someone who's filming, opposed to sort of by yourself.
Yeah, and like depending on what the goal of the project is, or like the goal of the scene is, I think that's really, really helpful to go in. So you're not just spraying and footage the whole day and you're just wasting card space, because then you get in the edit and you're like, oh my god, I have all this amazing footage, but what do I do with it all? So I think it's like, I always like to think about, okay, let's establish like a feeling of where we are, and maybe that's like some wide shots, maybe that's some like walking, that means like, okay, they're transitioning, they're going somewhere, and maybe you have some tight shots of like, I just like building up to that moment, because obviously the moment that we're trying to capture the most is the eat a lot of times, whether it's a dry fly eat or just like a wide shot of someone hooking up.
Yeah.
But I think when you're going in, having just shooting a variety of stuff, but also keeping a mental block or mental idea of the things you are shooting, so you're not overdoing it to an extent.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, right? You kind of like can assess stuff midway and be like, oh, what we need right now is like, we've got all the eats we need, like we've got all the wides we need. Like right now we just could really use like some fish details. So like we don't need to film anything other than like once we land a fish and get it in the net, like let's get some close details of that fish. Like what you're going for, as opposed to just like filming everything. And that kind of comes back to Hope and High Water too. What was so great about having Will there dedicated as the cameraman is he really was keeping that all in his head. Because obviously we're not stopping and reviewing what he's shooting every 2 seconds because we're the ones fishing. We were nervous at the end of that film that we didn't have it all, and he was like, oh no, like we got it all, like we got too much practically, definitely got it, like we're good.
Dude, I remember that last day. I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it, but if you have seen it, there's like cool moment at the end on that day. But essentially, I went into that last day of fishing being like, there is no way, like we're gonna have to come back here. We're just out of options. And it wasn't even and like the fishing was good. It was really good, but we were all kind of spread out, and like Will was running all over the place trying to capture it all. And I remember getting out of the river and finally getting to the other side where you guys were, and Will's like, dude, we got it. And I was like, that was the first moment I was like, oh, we actually might have it right here. And then walking back in the pouring rain and all the mud was a cool feeling of like, dang, we pulled it off somehow. And then the crazy thing was that flooding that happened at the end. I mean, it was within an hour of us crossing the river that when we came back, it was like, I mean, it would have been really dangerous to cross. Like we might have been stuck, truthfully, if we didn't head back to the truck earlier.
Yeah.
But that's for people to figure out when they watch the film.
I do want to answer this question in the chat real quick because it's a great question. I don't want it to get lost.
Yeah.
The big win asks, do you believe wilderness is a renewable resource? How do you see your work as contributing or taking away from the world's supply through videography? Which is, I'm going to try and keep this short because this could be a really long answer, and you could talk about this for days. Yeah, is telling stories about sensitive areas, wild areas that then encourage people to go and interact with those areas, is that having a negative or positive impact on areas that are sensitive, I guess is really the question. On our best days, we'd like to think it's having a positive impact. Does that mean that we can pretend that it doesn't have negative impacts? No, because it certainly does. As I mentioned already, the areas are sensitive, so they can only handle so much traffic. So, this is a question that you hear all the time in the fishing space. Hotspotting an area, if some place has great fishing because it's so untouched, and then everyone wants to go there and touch it. Suddenly it's not so untouched. Suddenly the fishing's not so great. That's a story all of us can relate to. I think that the truth of the matter is that human beings and our, growing societies have the power to completely eliminate wild space at like the snap of their fingers. There's nothing stopping us from destroying every last wild corner of the earth and ripping every possible resource out of it and river. Like, we have the power to do that. It's not something that, like, it doesn't matter how hard we try, we could never ruin the wilderness. We could totally ruin all the wilderness if that's what we wanted to do. Luckily, at this point in history still, there's a lot of people who want the wilderness around still and want wild places, want healthy wild ecosystems, want native species. There's a lot of people advocating for that still. And we're the only reason that we haven't ruined it all yet. Because if you just look at the track that we were on in the 1800s and the Industrial Revolution, like, it could all be gone already now. But luckily, a bunch of people kind of woke up to the fact and saw the destruction. Obviously, people are familiar with the environmental movement of the 1960s, et cetera. We have all these regulations now and designated federal areas to help protect that stuff. And the only reason that we're protecting it is because there's a bunch of people who care about it. And a big part of what makes someone who's interested in caring about a wild place is someone who's been to a wild place and had a special experience there. And it means something to them. And they say, gosh, when I go out into the wilderness, or when I go out into our national forest, or when I go outside anywhere and I have these really moving experiences in nature, that's a huge benefit to my life. I want to preserve that for myself selfishly and for other people selflessly, because I think that they should have that experience. So yeah, on our best days, I think that making films that inspire people to want to be outside and go outside and to go and have those experiences is a net positive for wild places, because it makes more advocates. The same just goes for fish and fishing in general. There's always a conversation of, are anglers a benefit or a detriment to fish? Do fish need us ripping them out of the water to thrive, or is angler impact negative on fish in general? And I have the same answer for that as well, that anglers make great stewards. Stewards protect fish, because there's plenty of people out there who would be happy to suck all the fish out of the rivers and ground them up into dog food or whatever. Yeah, ideally, if you're a fish, you're not getting caught and released either. You're just being left alone, to get whatever, dodge the ospreys and the grizzlies. Life's hard enough already. You don't need a bunch of dudes and waders hooking you. But for better or worse, it gives people an opportunity to interact with fish, to hold them, to look at them briefly, to love them and appreciate them. And then those people go and vote to protect waterways and keep those fish around. So, yeah.
And I think one of the biggest ways to like make people aware of why these places are special is through film, and through a story. Like stories, if you just look at like storytelling period, is something that's been around forever. That's how people have communicated, since like communication was a thing for humans. And I think it's just an outlet of telling a story about a place, and it's kind of out of our control what the full impact is, but I think our intent is to educate people, to get people excited about fishing, and hopefully care about these places as well. Even though we're not, in most of these films, we're not directly naming the creek, which is pretty intentional as well. But
right, and that comes back to impact too. We're all super aware of this stuff. We're super care. It's not just about oh, I've got my secret fishing spot and I don't want other people to go there because I want all the fish for myself. I mean, it really comes down to impact. You know, you don't want to see some of the best, most remote, most pristine fisheries left in the lower 48 and beyond get overrun with people because they just can't handle it. And it's not about, the fish are for me, they're not for you. It's just the fish aren't for everyone because the fish can't handle everyone. So we do have to be careful about telling people this is exactly where you should go to catch these fish. You know, we use places as an inspiration to just get people to go outside and try and find places like that. You know, if you point people too directly to a spot and it's too easy for too many people to find it, we just can't help ourselves. It's the way people are. You know, everyone looks at it as themselves as individuals. You don't think about the broader impact. What's my one day out there catching a couple fish? How's that really going to impact a resource? You know, it's easy even for us to have that mindset. It's different though when there's, you know, 100 people there a day, every day out of the year. We've all look up any stories about a fishery declining. You know, over harvest, over impact is always going to be a part of that story. So yeah, we don't directly name places for the most part, unless it's a place that's us naming it makes no difference in broader, you know, everyone knows where the Madison River is. Us saying we fished the Madison and it was good isn't going to make any additional impact that isn't already there. But yeah, it's a balancing act. We're all trying to figure it out as we go. There's more people fishing and more people hiking and more people mountain biking and more people doing everything now in the outdoors than ever before, partly because it's having a moment publicly, but also because there's just more people than ever before. It's constantly going to be an issue. But again, as long as there are people who are interested in protecting it, it's the only thing that's going to protect it. And hopefully our films make more people interested in protecting places.
Yeah, definitely, dude. Here's a question from Reyes Bishop. He said, how many cameras have you dropped in the river?
Scotty, you go first. We need to count over here.
Dude, surprisingly, I think I've only dropped like 1 or 2. Like I don't think I haven't sunk a camera. Like I haven't sunk a Sony. I haven't sunk a nicer camera. I've dropped like GoPros and whatnot, but yeah, I think like the couple times that I've fallen, and this is so shocking that I haven't, but the couple times that I've fallen, it's like arm is in the air, no matter what. I'm like fully underwater, but the camera's being saved. So
I'll let you talk on the camera dropping since I was not the one that dropped them.
Yeah, we've dropped 3 cameras in the river. I've dropped all of them.
And they're all still working.
No
They're
way.
all still
700 went swimming twice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not 3 cameras. It's 2 cameras, one of them twice. I dropped Amy's rangefinder film camera, you know, a mechanical, traditional film camera in the water. It's a photo camera in the water.
Yeah, it's a fully manual rangefinder camera, but it had an electronic light meter.
Yeah. So I was going to say, you know, the big fear with water is around electronics, is that it'll fry the electronics. This camera barely has any electronics in it except for the light meter, which it did destroy. But the rest of it is all mechanical. So as long as the stuff doesn't rust and stays lubricated, and we did
that was a journey on.
Yeah.
That camera was brand new. First time I had like ever purchased an expensive film camera, you know. Yeah. That one's still with us though. I still use it.
Yeah, that was a matter. It lived in a pouch on a strap, and the pouch turned upside down while I was waiting out to go take a picture, and it just fell out of it. It didn't fall out of my hands. It just fell out of the pouch while it was on me because I just wasn't paying close enough attention. And then the other camera, which is still our biggest and most expensive camera. I mean, this camera cost like $6,000 10 years ago. I mean, it was a really huge investment at the time, and shout out to my mom for helping us purchase that camera because we couldn't even afford it. But it really helped propel our career to have that tool. Since then, and many years later, I've dropped it twice. Once while in a canoe in a lake. It was on a tripod in the middle of the canoe, and the tripod tipped over, and I caught it, but after it dunked the whole thing. So it just dunked in really fast, and I pulled it out. And I completely stripped that camera down to the circuit boards. I mean, I removed every screw you could screw, completely disassembled it into factory parts.
It was horrifying.
And dried them out and reassembled it.
We're like at a lodge in Labrador.
Yeah, and reassembled it, and it still worked. And then a year later, 2 years later, Same thing happened on the edge of a river. It was
In
on
Quebec,
it was
yeah.
on a tripod, and someone landed a fish, and I had the wide on a tripod, and I had the GoPro in my hand. I wanted to walk up and get a release on the GoPro. It was a windy day.
I was really sick. I wasn't out shooting with you that
you
day.
weren't with me, and so there's no one else manning the cameras on the edge of the river.
Because normally, we're both there shooting on a project. I'd like stabilize the tripod and be shooting on that one, and you'd be off shooting on the other
and
one.
I was in there with the GoPro away from the camera, big gust of wind. I heard it come crashing down behind me, but I'm out in the river, so it took a minute to wade over to it. But it was fully just face down in the river. It was on and running when that happened, which is the surest way to fry electronics, is to have electric current going through them when they hit the water. But I grabbed it. I didn't even look at it. I just shut everything off, just grabbed it right to the off button, turned it off, and did the same thing. Brought it back to the lodge that we were at, completely disassembled it to its bare part, dried them all out, put it back together, and we're still using it today.
Yeah.
So it's still going.
First time you had a couple extra screws left over once you got it reassembled, and then the
Yeah.
second time a couple more extra screws, and you have like 7 screws.
There's 7 unaccounted for screws. I don't know where they go, but it still works. Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. I just thought of this. So in Alaska, the last 2 years, I have broken a piece of equipment on each trip. The first year was, I'm not gonna fully blame him for this, but our intern at the time, Clayton, had put the camera down on the chair, just one of the boat chairs, and my buddy went and like sat on it, and like the screen broke, and I got it fixed. I'm still using it. It's right here. But the other time, what happened this year with Will was on the other boat, and he's filming with the C70, and he's got lobbed up, so he's like got headphones on listening or whatever, and I go to our guide, and I was like, hey, can I I gotta go to the bathroom, can I just like pee off the edge? And he's like, no, you can't pee off the edge here, it's a law, like you have to pee in a bucket and then we have to dump it. And I was like, all right, I'll pee in the bucket. Fine. So I go to pee in the bucket, and I'm in my waders and whatnot, and I like have the zip waders, so I like unzip them, I go to pee, and right after I start peeing, my lav mic falls into the bucket. And I was like, oh. And Will heard like the mic just like or whatever, and he looks over, and I like pull it out, and I was like, oh gosh. The mic was fried, it was done. For the trip, but we had backups, fortunately, so that's why you bring backup gear. But that's my story. All right, let's see here. All right, this is a good question. Taylor Connolly asked, Wildfire Productions with the IF4 and F3T making recent stops by me. It got me thinking, have you or Tight Loops ever entered a film into the festival? If you have, how does the production of those films differ than an average YouTube film? And if you haven't, what is your mindset in not submitting one? Great question. I've never submitted one. I know I've submitted like films into like way back in the day into this small film festival called the Charleston Angler Fly Fishing Film Festival, and it was like a really small thing. But yeah, I mean, I know you guys have maybe submitted one. Are you working on one or something?
Yeah.
You've probably submitted
a bunch of
times.
So yeah, Scotty, you're the true renegade industry outsider. We have tried to submit multiple years, multiple different films. We've been rejected every time. I don't want to make it sound like it's because we just didn't provide a good enough film. We had lots of conversations with the people at the festivals who were very interested in showing our films, but we just weren't willing to make some of the compromises they had asked for to get it festival ready.
Yeah. Typically it's length, right? That's like the biggest issue.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference really between like doing a video for YouTube where you have full control and final say over the format and the length and blah, blah, blah. When you submit stuff to these festivals, they have certain requirements that are pretty restrictive. And mostly it's based around how many films they want to be able to show and how long they can have a venue for / hold attention. So, if you're looking to go to a film festival that's going to show you 20 different films or 15 films and, 3 hours or something in a theater is a long time for an audience. You can only fit, 10, 15 films or whatever into 3 hours at 20 minutes in length. And most of our stories are almost always more than 20 minutes. And yeah, we're always trying to get people to like show longer films, and we couldn't get to it. Which was what was so awesome about this project was that we could make it whatever length we wanted to, just like any YouTube video, but then getting to do those live premieres where people could come out and watch a single film that's a little bit longer. I haven't attended any of those film festivals. They mostly happen in the winter, and they happen in a lot of Rocky Mountain type locations in the winter, and we're usually avoiding winter in the Rocky Mountains because we live in our car, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but I'm not sure if audiences who do attend those are like craving longer content or they're happy watching short form content, but it was certainly cool to get people out to watch something longer, fishing a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think the cool thing, I guess, for me, why I haven't really put much effort into submitting a film to one of those festivals is one, the constraints like you talked about, but also like the goals of the projects that we're working on. I feel like there's a better, I would say maybe like return on investment, or it makes more sense to make a film how I want to make it, to release it to the audience that wants to watch my films, period. And like that doesn't mean that, I'm like anti-film tour by any means, but for what you get, like the time that goes into a project for a film tour, and then it's like they go on the tour, you don't really get paid very much for the films, and you're the time, I guess, spent on those projects, I see that better used to put something big together for a YouTube project that when it's done, I'm excited about it, I want to release it, and it's out, and people get to watch it. So I feel like, I don't know, I've just like taken a different path than some people, but I think for maybe certain people who maybe don't have like a bigger platform to share their work on, it's a great place. But the other thing, because I've been to also a couple film tours in the past, and it just feels like a stoke reel after stoke reel, and there's like definitely some good films, but a lot of them felt very like you didn't know who any of these people were. You kind of got to learn who they were through the film festival. But the cool thing about the film premieres that we hosted back in December in Colorado and Salt Lake was everyone was there to like watch our film, and they were genuine fans of like what we do, which I think made more intimate setting. People were like, they, in a way, there was like a built relationship with the fans there because they knew us in a way, and they got to come see it, and they were like, spending their evening to watch an hour-long film. And so to be able to not have the constraints and just do it our way, I think was the best possible thing. Yeah. Probably a true dream, because like a dream of mine has always been like early on was to have F3T film. But I feel like what we did was leaps and bounds above that dream in terms of fulfillment. So that is a long answer to that question, but I'm definitely not, I don't know, I just don't see myself making one for the tour. Maybe that'll change, but for now,
I mean, if the goal is to have as many people see these films as possible, like the audience that we both have on YouTube, more people are going to see it and experience it on that platform than like a film tour. But it is special to have people see that film in person, and like our experience with the premieres with Hope and High Water was such a special thing.
Yeah. Uh-oh, we lost him.
We thought were worth it. We didn't want them, there's exclusivity deals with that stuff too, where it's like, while it's being shown on tour, you can't really show it anywhere else, et cetera, et cetera. But I know sometimes with some of those tours, a handful of the films you see are actually sort of like sponsored by the tour. The tour kind of takes the role of like producer on some of those, whatever organizing body is makes up the tour. They'll fund certain projects just to make sure they have stuff to show at the tours, so they're not just relying on submissions. If we were ever approached to make a film or something, I'm sure probably for you too, Scott, if you were approached to make one and they wanted to fund it, we'd be happy to do that. But that hasn't happened yet. No one's come knocking.
Yeah, which is fine. I think that's the beauty of what we do with YouTube too. It's like we can make something that exactly how we want to make it, and we'll find an audience of people who enjoy it. Some of which who are in the chat right now, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I did see a couple questions. There was one in the chat, but we did have a couple questions on what camera equipment do you use, to capture your films, like what's our favorite camera gear, and maybe some recommendations on gear just in general. I would say plain and simple, like the gear that we use, both of us, is the Sony A7S III, which is a mirrorless camera. It's like this big. It's not huge, and it's the perfect, I think, camera for what we do. And I'm just gonna speak for myself. I don't want to speak for y'all, but it's light and you can carry it and put it in your pack a lot of times. You can shoot up to 120 frames per second, so you can get slow-mo, which is great, and it shoots log, which is huge for a film like this where we're shooting on multiple cameras, and we want to shoot a really flat image so that we can color grade it to look like all the other footage. Shout out to Chase for color grading the Hope and High Water film. That's why it looks so beautiful. But it just, I don't know, I feel like it's the ultimate like run and gun DIY camera for fishing and just action sports. I think there's a time and place for a cinema camera, which is like with Hope and High Water, we had Will running a cinema camera most of the trip, but there's that also one of the things to consider when you're filming is whatever you bring is only going to slow you down. So if you bring a huge bag of camera gear of all these different lenses and all, a drone and a huge heavy camera, you're just not going to be as nimble when you're out in the river. And so I like the nimbleness of the Sony and that size of camera. And I feel like I've just gotten to use it and learn it, so I don't see a need to change.
Yeah, I feel like we tell people all the time, like the best camera is the one you take with you. The one that you want to pick up, whether it's because you're excited to use it because you like the gear or because it's small and it fits in your bag, that's the best piece of gear. So like if for you, all you can stomach having to take out on a hike with you is your cell phone, like iPhone shoots 4K, make a film with your iPhone. I don't know, like that's the best camera is the one that you take with you. The same thing, with drones, like, that you could go get a bigger, more expensive drone and the image would be a little bit better, but if you never take it out, what good is it? So same thing with like Sony, cinema camera, they make cinema cameras that make an even more pleasing image than the Sony A7S III, but when it weighs 15 pounds and it requires its whole own backpack that you got to take out with you fishing, and you find yourself not bringing it out sometimes because it's going to slow you down, what good is it sitting at home? So definitely those little mirrorless cameras these days are so good. I mean, they're as good as the most expensive cinema camera you could buy 10 years ago, so you're really at this point in time, like you're splitting hairs about image quality, etc. And I'm happy to split hairs. We still split hairs about gear all the time. And there's tons of other cameras I'd love to own and I'd love to use. But it's something about those small mirrorless cameras from Sony. They just tick so many boxes. They're pretty hard to, especially like you said, for what we shoot. It's hard not to want to use those cameras.
Yeah, I think having that, a GoPro on you, and having your phone. I use my phone a lot, and I feel like I'm going to continue to use my phone even more.
Yeah. Just funny, we don't use our phone at all. And I think filming with you was the first time, like, you like were always on it with the phone. It was like, I never really think about doing that.
Right. What's Scotty? Is Scotty on TikTok over there? What's
this damn Gen Z? What is he doing over there? You're supposed to get off your phone in the wilderness. No, it's nice. I mean, it's like, it's got the newer ones have like 3 different lenses to the camera, and a lot of times that is the best camera to pull out. If if you just need to capture something really quick. Again, it comes down to story and like how you use the camera. So you're obviously not going to get the best image quality out of an iPhone, but if you're creative with it and you can tell and formulate a cool story, then you kind of forget about the camera. And I think that's the whole goal with any camera, really. It's just like you don't want people to be thinking about, oh, just switch to this, or oh, they're probably shooting that. You just want them to watch it and just relive the experience seamlessly and kind of live through that flow of the story. But for people like who are getting into it, because I know someone asked, what's like a good camera above a GoPro? I think like Sony has so many, and I'm sure Canon does too, but like Sony has so many options now of these entry level cameras that shoot incredible 4K imagery that are like really small. Yeah. So I think whatever's in your price range, they all kind of do the same thing. But for fishing, the good thing to look at is the frame rate. Does it shoot up to 60 frames, 120 frames where you can slow it down a ton? Or is it just shoot, standard like 24 or 30 frames a second? So that's something to consider. But at the end of the day, it's all in your price range. And, the whole thing is like buy nice or buy twice. I know that sometimes we're balling on a budget. Like, it took me a long time to save up to buy my first Sony camera. But, man, if you just keep buying like skimpy cameras, you're just going to keep buying them instead of saving up for the one nice one. My opinion.
Yeah, I should say one of the reasons slow motion is so important. Sure, there's there's two things that slow motion is really important for in industry filmmaking in general, is like sports photography and wildlife photography, because they both have like fleeting fast moments that are great to be able to slow down to give an audience an up close look at. And fly fishing kind of combines like both those things. There's the sports side of it, which is kind of like, like a fish taking a fly or something. That's
like
kind
casting.
of, that's like a baseball player hitting a pitch or whatever. It's like this very small moment that you want to be able to capture and be able to slow it down. So that moment that's a fraction of a second can last a couple seconds on screen where people can really get a good look at it. But then also the wildlife, half of fishing films is really wildlife photography. And especially when you're dealing with a fish that's delicate, you want to minimize your handling time of a fish. And maybe you think that slow motion is corny or overused, or you're tired of watching 120 frames per second sleek, gimbal shots of people fishing in rivers. But at the end of the day, anything that gets a fish into the net and out of my hands quickest to reduce impact is best. And I want people to be able to see how beautiful the fish are and appreciate the fish. So if I'm going to shoot a fish in my hands, I want to only be handling it for a few seconds, and being able to slow reality down so much with slow motion ensures that you can do that and reduce your harm. And I think that's really important. If for no other reason to have slow-mo, if you want to show fish on camera, just shoot it in slow motion so that you don't have to hold a fish for 30 seconds to get a 30-second shot. If you can slow it down enough, you only have to handle them for 5 seconds. I think it's just better practice for impact, because there's a lot of people out there, especially with social media, who fish handling is taking a dip just for the sake of getting the shot. It's a lot easier to get the shot when you can do it quickly with slow motion. And the same thing goes for any of the tech in modern cameras. Good autofocus, just less time fiddling with a lens, getting focus on a fish or whatever, you want to be able to get that stuff like nice and quick.
Yeah, totally. That was something you guys brought up on the trip that I had never thought about, but it's like such a good point.
Yeah.
It's such a fleeting moment, and you also want to relive that. And so having it in more frames so you can slow it down is a great way to do it. All right, here. There's some questions in the chat. Let's see what people are saying. Do you guys ever break a rod or rod tip while on the water, and how do you deal with it? Repair kit or spare rod? Well, in fact, I broke a rod on this trip. And fortunately, we just had an extra rod. But yeah, if you're going on a multi-day trip...
Fortunately, I was recording.
Yeah. Amy got it on camera. It's great. But yeah, if you're going on a multi-day trip, if you have the means and you have multiple rods, I would bring them. Just, you don't want to get all the way out to where you're going, and day one, hole one, you break your rod, and then you're just kind of stuck. So, yeah. But it happens. So warranties are nice for rods, and typically they're pretty good. But
Yeah, I don't have like a true repair kit, but I've gotten pretty MacGyver in the past where I didn't have spare rods, or I had spare rods, but I only had one, 9'5" weight, and that was the type of water we were fishing. I've broken the tip off of rods, and without a way to like connect the tip satisfactorily, I've taken a paper clip, bent it into a ferrule, and then used fly tying thread to tie it back on, duct tape it on.
Yeah, this is not surprising.
Yeah, we met a guy in Yellowstone last summer who was hitchhiking, was hitchhiking across the country. He came from France. He only had one fly
we
rod.
were on our way to meet up with you.
Yeah, that's right. We were on our way.
When I actually picked up those
he didn't have the budget, backpacking across the country to buy another rod. And like first day in, he broke his rod, like snapped it right in the middle somewhere, really inconvenient. And he went to a store somewhere and just found a little thin piece of fiberglass tubing for cheap or something and jammed it inside of the rod and like taped it back together to keep it together. And he was still fishing like a month later,
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes you got to get creative for sure.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Jerry rigged that shit.
Yeah. His casting was a little wonky, but it was he caught a fish, right?
Hey, yeah.
Always got a fish.
I mean, as everyone knows, if you're huck finning it, you can catch a fish just using a willow branch. So at the end of the day, whatever happens, like I'm sure you'll find a way to catch a fish if you're that motivated.
Dude, yeah. Yeah, I remember as a kid making rods out of sticks, and like we'd go and buy those little like screws that it's like a circle and then you can screw it in.
Yep.
They didn't really work, but it was, it's fun to make.
Everyone's seen the footage of like Skip Pallet or Joe Humphreys or someone casting a fly line just in their hands with no rod, while double hauling and shooting out 50 feet of line. So you don't even need a rod. You break your rod, just go hand line fish.
Dude, absolutely. That's absolute legend. This is a good question from Amanda. I think they asked this on y'all's page. She said, I'd love for you to talk about the research and work that went into pre-production and how that informed the film, and what had to adapt to as far as changes during the shoot. And also, I'd like to know how the experience of shooting this film has changed or informed how you're going to approach your next project.
I feel like there's so many layers to this with this project specifically, from like permitting to actual shooting to, there's so many pieces there.
Yeah, I guess, maybe like the very first part, before we could even really talk about any of the logistics of this project, was just figuring out if we could get the legal stuff in order ahead of time. It's something a lot of people might not think about or be aware of. But when we're shooting in certain areas, certain public lands, there's certain rules. You have to pull permits to be able to shoot. The long short of it is that like most people can get away if you're just shooting some GoPro video or a video on your phone or something and you're on public land. No one's coming after you if you post that stuff on YouTube. It's not that big of a deal. But for us, we have actual like LLC companies behind. We have brands. There's money behind this stuff, and legally, we are supposed to get permits to shoot on public land and private land and whatever. And it's not that big of a deal. You pay a little bit of money and you fill out the paperwork, and for the most part, these agencies are willing to work with you, and you can get the permits. We really wanted to shoot this film in a designated wilderness area. It just happened to be the area with the story we wanted to tell. Wilderness areas are a little different. They're a little more strict about permitting. Well, a lot more strict about permitting. But they are more sensitive. And yeah, it took us months of running around with the National Forest Agency responsible for managing this particular wilderness area we wanted to go to. And in the end, we were not granted permission to shoot there. So
a lot of things changed at that point.
Yeah.
It was a week before our trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chase spent a lot of time on the phone.
Yeah. So that was step one of pre-production, was just getting permission to even make a film, let alone where are we going to go, how long are we going to shoot for, all that kind of stuff. First was just acquiring permission, which in the end, we weren't given permission to shoot in the area we wanted to. And of course, at our worst moments, we were like, we should just do it anyway. But, we ended up not doing that.
Yeah, it's important to lead by example.
Yeah, that's right. It's important to lead by example.
And respect the rules and regulations that are in place, even though they may be ancient and in need of change, but it's not our call to take that into our own hands.
So we had to pivot there in terms of location, which is a big part of a fishing film. A lot of them are pretty heavily location based, and we were still in the same general area we wanted to be. We just had to film outside of the wilderness area, in other national forest lands, which didn't have the same remote mystique that we were hoping the area we were going to be shooting in would have. But in the end, the fishing is just marginally less good as it is the deeper you go into the wilderness, and the country's still incredibly wild and beautiful, and we still ended up having to pull permits for those areas that we were granted permission to film in, and all of that came together right down to the wire. I think Scotty, you were like signing over the permit money like a couple days before in the water.
I mean, the permits also like aren't cheap. Like
no,
the ones it's probably like close to $1,000 what we had to pay.
Yeah, it was like 100 and change.
Yeah, and that was for like 4 days of on location shooting. We shot for more than that making this film, but the actual days on the rivers when we were fishing was 4 days of filming. And it was like at least like $250 a day or something. Yeah. Again, as Amy was kind of alluding to, that like the regulations are kind of squirmy for what we do these days. Small independent filmmakers, YouTubers, social media influencers, that's a new thing. That's like in the last 10 years, the idea of a YouTuber is even really accepted. So a lot of these regulations that were written for larger film and television productions, which there's this whole other economy of filmmaking types who are small and independent, small crews, small budgets, and they're not really designed for that. They're designed, most of the, we're filling out permits, and it's like asking us to put like our vehicle staging sites and like where, like craft services is going to be, and like all this kind of stuff that doesn't apply at all to, a small crew of people going out to make a fly fishing film. So it's really restrictive. So I certainly don't begrudge any of the smaller YouTubers or filmmakers or independents who are like, I'm not going through this permitting process. Like, I don't have the money, to be able to afford permits. And at the end of the day, again, if you're small enough and it's a small channel, it's super low consequence. The Forest Service isn't going to hunt people down and send them to jail.
Also, cannot guarantee any of this.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Don't take his word as like the law.
We're both of our brands are at a point where we're just big enough that we kind of had to like switch over to the side of we're just going to do everything by the book from now on, just to be safe. And our audience is big enough that we just need to set a good example. But we're not going to pretend that 10 years ago, I never even looked up if you needed a permit or not. And a lot of that stuff has changed too. For a long time, YouTube or Instagram or whatever, social media, that stuff didn't even fall into the writing of whether or not it counted as a serious production or not. Yep. Now everyone's kind of catching on like, oh, people are making money on YouTube. That's a commercial production. It needs to fall under commercial production guidelines, but it still hasn't quite caught up to be like, well, it's commercial, but it's a little different than a lot of commercial stuff. Mm-hmm. It should probably have its own unique regulations. We're not quite there yet. Yeah. It's kind of a nightmare, to be honest.
It is a nightmare, but that's the thing with a big film like this. There's like so many more steps that go into it. And then on top of that, we had to plan, we get the permits, but it's like, all right, what is the film about? That's one of the things that, because you asked, how does the pre-production kind of inform that film? Obviously you're going to film a real experience. So you can't really predict exactly the moments you're going to capture. You can have an idea of like, oh, we want to catch cutthroat. We want to get some dry fly eats. We want to get good camaraderie at camp. We want to capture, the experience. But I think for us going into it, we wanted to tell a story about us as creators and friends and our relationship over the years, and seeing it through the lens of this trip being one that like we've wanted to do something together for so long, and now is finally the time to do it. So I think that was that's like what I told Will going into it. I was like, I really want to capture, y'all's personalities, because I feel like from a different perspective, like from our perspective, you guys are going to tell your stories in a certain way, but if we can tell it in a different way, because I like just know you guys for who you guys are. You guys are super fun people. So that was one of my goals. And so I think Will had that on the back of his mind, and I did too, going into it, to help capture certain moments, essentially. But I think having a plan of like, here are some ideas of what I want the film to be about, but then leaving room for the the stuff that just happens, and just knowing that stuff's gonna happen, and you gotta just be ready to capture it. That's a big part of it too. But I would say having at least a little bit of a goal helped us going into filming, and then into the edit. But
Yeah, I think the final piece of that question, like how is it going to inform or change the way we approach future projects? That's kind of always evolving. That's like every project is sort of informing the next project to some extent. And a lot of the stuff that you just touched on, Scotty, I don't know that this film in particular was like so eye-opening in the way we approached it, but like, oh, this is going to change the way we make films now forever. I think probably the biggest thing, the biggest way it'll change at least the way we approach future projects is in terms of like the self-funding model and maybe the live events. You know, it's kind of all a big experiment to see if we could do a film like this, a bigger film with a higher production demand budget wise, without chasing after a gazillion sponsors to fund it, and see if audiences would be interested in funding a project like that. And we're still collecting that data. You know, it's not the jury's still a little bit out on like
an experiment that is in the hands of fans of our work, which is super cool.
We've been talking about it amongst ourselves, that essentially it's been a success in that we were able to fund it. We're basically at a point now where we've more or less broken even on the project. We haven't made a ton of money, gotten rich to film yet, but we also did a bunch of money into a hole we couldn't get back. So in that sense, it was a great success. And then going forward from now, when the dust sort of settles a month or two from now, we can really kind of go like, well, that was the project and it's over now, and this is how much money came in, etc. Then we'll really know if this is something that we'll do in this way again in the future. I know there's questions that have been asked on Instagram and probably also in the chat, like if we're going to collaborate more in the future. And I think the answer to that is like, yes, for sure. Whether or not how that'll look will be affected on what the overall outcome of this is. You know, like if this ends up being like a smash hit, we'll just keep doing stuff exactly like this. If not, we'll just sort of adapt and do it a slightly different way. But either way, we'll definitely be doing more in the future. And then, again, this was a big experiment for both of us, figuring out what it would be like to put on live events, to self-fund, to pay what you think is fair, paywall model, etc. So far it's been moderately successful. We'll see if it's going to be really successful and viable to just keep doing on and on, or if in the end, like the actual investment of time and effort doesn't quite see like the same financial return that will keep us making more. It's not really about just like, do we make money? It's just about, can it fund more stuff, which we touched on earlier. We're not here trying to get filthy rich off the backs of our viewers. You know, we just want to be able to have the resources to keep making great stuff that people enjoy. And it does, that can be difficult because the expectation both from ourselves and from audiences to keep making bigger and better things. Bigger and better things are just more complicated and more expensive. And
and I think another thing too, like we did this one this was a really big film, and there was a whole event. We sold it over a paywall. But even though that was how we did it, doesn't mean like future collaborations have to just be like that. I think like we have plans. Hopefully, we're trying to figure something out for this year to link up with the new rig, and we'll that will probably be more of a low key type of trip, and I think that's totally fine too. But I know I personally really enjoyed the process of collaborating with you guys and like having a team and getting to learn different things about how you guys put your films together and how you work in an editing program, or how you think from a storytelling standpoint, which I think really informed a lot of, it's like just a constant learning process of filmmaking. So that really helped me. And like moving a little bit slower too. I think that's something sometimes I'm just like, go. And seeing how methodical you guys are with how you work, and especially in the field, was really really cool to watch and just collaborate. But I just love, like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like it doesn't even matter how much money this thing brings in. We just want to be able to, like I just want to spend more time with you guys and fish and film and all that jazz. So to answer those questions, we will definitely be doing something. We have some bigger ideas that are in the works. Again, there's a lot of logistics behind those, but hopefully in the short term we'll be linking up soon.
Yeah.
At some point. Someone said Amy lost her shit when she scratched the new truck camper on the wood wagon. Chase is a stronger man than I am.
Well, you're not wrong. It was not a good moment, but
It's hilarious.
it's tough.
Well,
thing.
to be
fair,
fair,
it was brand new.
To be fair, I lost my shit too. I just lose my shit more inward than Amy
Also,
does.
I didn't have it in me to turn the camera on him, but you were very calm and collected because I was not. So in that situation, someone's got to hold it together, right?
I kind of I implode. Amy exploded, but to be fair, says when she scratched the truck camper, it was more than a scratch. We put a hole in the side of it. The whole side of the camper had to be completely replaced with a window, and it cost thousands of dollars. And yeah, it was a bigger boo boo than just a scratch. I mean, it's kind of hard to translate that stuff on film, but yeah, it was a big piece of damage to a very expensive.
It's like less than 30 days that we had that truck.
Yeah, very expensive thing that was brand new,
and also it's our house, and it has to last a long time because it is literally all we have.
Yeah, I think
we live in here full time.
Yeah, the important thing to remember is that for us, we are not rolling in dough. That is our rig that we're sitting in here is very, very expensive, and we had to take out big bank loans to afford it. And for us, it's the biggest investment we've ever made in anything. You know, we've never even been close. And even if you asked us 5 years ago if we could afford something like this, we'd be like, no, not in a million years. And we still can't really afford it.
When we were thinking we had to buy something like this, we were like, how are we going to ever afford this? And it was a lot of number crunching and like, are we making the right decision? Like, this is insane. And I think sometimes we still feel
and basically if at any point we just stop making money and can't pay our loans on this, they'll just take it away from us. So it's not just like people look at folks on YouTube and they go, I don't know, these companies probably gave you this free camper and truck and it doesn't make any difference. What's the big deal? It's just a rig or whatever. Like, no, this is like the biggest. It is
our house and we have a mortgage payment on it every month. And if you moved into a house 20 days later, someone drove a truck into the side of it or whatever.
Oh gosh, yeah. Go watch the Baja Tyler's film for context.
Yeah, buying this, investing in this was very, very stressful for us, and we're still kind of stressed about it because it's this big investment that we're paying loans on, and every day is kind of just stressful, worrying that we might damage it and then not be able to pay the money to have it repaired. So to do that exact scenario like a couple weeks into owning it, where we're already just on edge, being like, oh my god, I can't believe we have this expensive thing.
And it
like,
was
what if it breaks? Oh my god,
frustrating. Because what you don't see is all of the dialogue where, like, before that happens, I'm telling the guy who we're going, we can't fit because we're going to tip too far and the top of our camper is going to hit that cart. We need to all get out, try to move it. We tried to move it. We were only able to move it over a couple inches. It was hundreds and hundreds of pounds and 4 people trying to move that cart. Couldn't budget. It was just
Uh-oh, we lost him, guys. Starlink will be back soon. I did see someone asked. Oh, there they are. You're back. Never mind. Here, one sec, guys. I'm trying to get you guys back in. You guys disappeared. One sec, guys. I can hear you, but you guys are. There. Yeah, no, that's great. There was a question. Did the Arcola said RC Cola? Did the film premieres in Utah and Colorado at least pay for itself? It was so much fun to go to the brewery and watch the film. Loved it. I maybe it was close. I yeah. It was like tickets and merch. Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, what's that? Mm-hmm. Here, one sec, guys. There's no audio coming from y'all's end. Oh, psh.
Like it's fine.
All right. I think you guys are good now.
Okay.
Can you guys hear them?
Tell us.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but overall, I think just it was like, again, it was, I don't know, it was just such a cool experience to put on an event and like get people in person and like get to look face to face to people who watch our videos and then like tell you what it means. Like I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then looking out into the crowd, you know, I think the Denver event there was like 200, or no, sorry, there was like 320 people. But compared to a YouTube video that, you know, some of our videos get upwards of hundreds of thousands of views, but you see 300 people in front of you, that's like, whoa, that's like way more impactful than, you know, just looking at like 100,000 views, which sounds crazy. But yeah, anyways, it was a cool event. It was a good investment, I think, in just like into the event and into our, you know, experience. So
Yeah, I think, and that's how we were all looking at it, as an investment. So even if it didn't pay for itself, even if we lost money on it, I don't think we look, in hindsight, we wouldn't change a thing about it, because we knew that going into it. We hope to be able to make money back on it. In our wildest dreams, maybe we'd even make money on top of that. But the point was just to invest in it because it was worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if anyone is in here and you guys came to the events, thank you so much. And actually, leave us some notes here in the chat. Where should we, if we do another film premiere tour, where should we come? Where are you guys living? What towns should we come to?
Should we answer Gabe's question? Has living nomadically ever lost its luster? Has extended traveling ever taken a toll on your relationship?
Good question.
Yes. And yes to both of those. Yeah, there's definitely good days and bad days in terms of like, does it lose its luster? Yeah, there's some days where you're like, I really wish I didn't live in a vehicle. All I want to do is like take a shower and be able to like be in a room alone. I don't know. You know, there's so much about living on the road that is kind of made out to be like so many people are like, you're living the dream. And like, for sure, like in some way, yes, but there's a balance that you have to find, and not every day is a good day, and there's issues and there's challenges and there's real trade-off. And I would say relationship wise, I don't know if I would say it like takes a toll on our relationship, but there's challenges to it, and we had to get a lot better at communicating more openly. And I think that it's a constant learning process for us. Like, we're always learning.
Yeah, I don't, it's like a stress test. I don't think that it's had a negative impact or positive impact on our relationship in any specific way, other than it's just a strain on people in general, whether you're
living in a very small space.
Yeah, whether it would be a roommate or a mother or a child or a romantic partner. Yeah, it's just living on the road in general is just a little bit more stressful. So having two people who are under a little bit more stress with each other 24 hours a day, bouncing that stress off of each other. Yeah, it's definitely just like a strain on relationships, period. But I think that stress test also kind of like fast tracks a relationship. You know, people say that often about living on the road. People say that about tandem canoeing. People say that about anything like that where you can't really get away from your partner, is that you're either going to sink or swim pretty quick. Mm-hmm. So I think at this point, having been living on the road for 4 years, if it was going to break us, it would have broken us years ago, you know? So in that way, it's a benefit, I guess, is that it kind of like brings issues to the forefront, fast tracks them to the forefront more quickly. You're forced to confront any issues in your relationship more quickly. So yeah, I guess in that way it's a benefit.
I really admire it. I mean, the amount of time that you guys spend together in the tight space that you're in, and the way that you guys are able to communicate and not be like I'm sure you guys snap at certain points, but it seems like you guys keep it to like the communication is just so good that if that's going to happen, you guys are just know someone's not feeling, someone needs their space or whatever.
Sometimes like things come up and it happens, but I think we're very quick to recognize like, oh, the reason why this person is acting like this, or the reason why I'm acting like this or feeling like this is because this thing is bothering me. And if I can just communicate it, then like we can work through it. Or like sometimes it's like, can you like go for a walk so I can be in this space by myself? Because like we never have our personal space. And Chase is super introverted. I'm, somewhere in between there, but it's certainly trying at times when you just like need to shut down and be alone, and you never really get that alone time. But the communication is definitely, learning how to not take things personally. Or trying to get to the root of like what's going on here so that we can fix it. And I think Chase is really good at identifying that kind of stuff and just trying to prioritize taking care of yourself and the things that you need and communicating those needs.
Yeah, it helps that we really like each other, know.
Yeah, this is one you don't like.
That makes,
because you will definitely not like them.
That makes it easier. But if you stick two people who like each other in a little box, eventually they're going to rub each other the wrong way over various things. We won't pretend that we don't argue or fight, just like any couple. And that's magnified by being in a small space together all the time. Like Amy said, no free time or personal space unless you get out of the truck and just start walking off to the horizon,
happens.
Which depending on where you're at, you either can or can't do,
Right.
Yeah, like any day you're like, oh man, I just like all I want to do is get out of this vehicle. And when we were trying to finish up the Baja video, low winter light makes solar charging really challenging. We had to park it for a week at a time. Chase was like sun up to like 3 a.m. working on that video, just absolutely killing himself. We're running out of power. We're trying to run the truck for an hour at a time to charge it off the alternator. And when we finally, to people that know this story and understand, like we're following along, know that we had to actually delay that premiere by a week. We left that camp spot as soon as we made that call, like we need to delay a week. We cannot get this done in time. Like it is logistically, physically impossible to make this happen. I booked us a hotel. That was the next step, is like, we need to go somewhere that has power, where I can take a shower, where we can like spread out a little bit and just fully focus in on this. We can't be worrying about power in the truck. We can't be worrying about this, that, and the other thing, groceries, all those kind of things. Like we need to just go get a hotel for a couple days and give ourselves a little, not luxury, but just like take those variables off of our plate and just focus in on the editing process. So sometimes that happens too. It's not always like the easiest decision. It's expensive. We don't take that lightly. It's definitely carefully considered, but I think sometimes you just have to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah. And
hotel makes a difference every once in a while.
And the timing of that, which finishing up your Baja film, you guys were finishing it up in the hotel, and you guys roll right into Salt Lake City. here for us, and we had a week to finish Hope and High Water before the Salt Lake premiere. A deadline that we couldn't push back, and the film was not done. So, like, to give everyone some context, I was pretty close. Like, the bone structure of the film was done, but there were still some gaps to it and some things I wanted help and support from Chase and Amy on. And you guys rolled in, and you had like maybe like a day or two that you had to finish the Baja film while you were here, just like color and sound or whatever. And I mean, we didn't skip a beat. You just went right into Hope and High Water mode, and that one went down to the wire. Like, Chase and I exported the film the day of the premiere, and we're watching it back, and it took way longer than we expected to export, for one, which stressed us out. We were super sleep deprived at this point. And then we're watching it back. You know, we have to watch the film back, of course. It's an hour long, you know, and we're watching it back knowing that we don't have enough time to export another version before the Salt Lake premiere. And so we're watching it. It's just silent. We're like, please, no mistakes. And we get all the way through it, and we're like, yes, it's over. It's good. Let's go friggin' premiere it. But that was like one of the craziest months of just leading up to that, and especially the last week and a half with you guys. I mean, we were up, you know, every day at like 7, 8 a.m. working till literally midnight or later.
I think one of those like review, you guys called me into the room. We were all watching it together, and your neighbor was pounding on the wall trying to
my
get
neighbor behind me. Yeah, we're like watching the film at like 2 a.m. all of us just watching it back, and these speakers, and my neighbor, of course, he's like on the other side of this wall. He's like, dude, I'm trying to sleep. We're like, oh, whoops.
Shut up.
Didn't realize it's 2 a.m.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Twilight Zone. I think Chase and I, in a lot of ways, are still trying to recover from that month and a half of just like craziness for us.
Recover is a strong word. Recharge.
Mentally
Recharge. Yeah. We're not traumatized.
No, just like, you know, stress takes a toll on your body.
Yeah. We haven't quite like evened back out from like redlining it super hard on 2 projects like that, even though it's been well over a month now. It takes. Yeah. We're artists, guys. We're sensitive. All right.
We're sensitive. We're sensitive people.
We're out here looking for birds.
Yeah.
Trying to recharge.
Yeah, I think that's something I learned from Griff, Goth Babe. When I did that project with him, he was just talking about the importance of like, you got to make time to recharge and like oh, they're gone. Oh no. I'll keep going though. He basically was talking about taking the time to recharge, you know, if you're a creator or you're really doing anything. And I feel like I find this with fly fishing too, where you get kind of burnt out. Can you guys hear me now? You guys got me? Stand by, everybody. Can y'all hear me?
We're back.
Mm-hmm.
Why did Starlink opponent us so hard?
I don't know if that is Starlink. Because that's been. Oh, you just had it. Yeah.
My audio is
You just
clear.
had an
Can you guys hear
outage,
Chase and
but
Amy?
it's up.
Can you guys hear me now? Hold on.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me? I feel like we're on like a.
Oh, we're in.
Yeah, we just can't see Scotty.
That's fine.
Can you guys hear me?
Because we can't hear him.
Oh, yeah, we
Wait, can we hear you, Scotty? Can you hear us? No, we don't hear him.
Guys,
Like,
this is why we're
you
not
start like
streamers.
sending hand signals.
Yeah. Oh, here, one sec. Alright, guys, I'm kicking them out. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay. There we go.
Took a big old dump, I think.
Sorry, guys. This live streaming stuff is just a whole thing.
Sorry about that.
Anyways, I think what we were talking about is just taking the time to recharge, and especially over the holidays, man. I just did not. I just skied, hung out with family, and just did not work at all. And it was like so nice. And I actually am now working on the Alaska film, and for the last like maybe week and a half, 2 weeks. And I could feel myself like getting excited to work on it again, because after Hope and High Water, I didn't want to, like, I was so done with that film, and I was so done with editing and production.
It takes a while to like creatively recharge and be ready to give your full attention back to something like that.
Yeah, you might be physically, refreshed, and you've gotten your sleep and you have the energy to work on something, but it's hard to explain. I think everyone has a little bit of creativity in them, and they might kind of understand what we're talking about. For people who sort of like modus operandi is creative work, it can be very hard mentally to get in the space. It takes an emotional energy to make something creative, that even if you're physically able to sit down for 10 hours at your computer and have the editing program up, the sort of like the emotional and mental energy that it takes to pour yourself into it, if that's not there, it can just be like pulling teeth. You can sit there forever and nothing good's going to come out of it. And it takes a long time to get back into that space, even if you want to be in that space. It's not something you can just turn on or off, or that you necessarily know what does turn on or off that thing. Sometimes it's just time.
Yeah, and that's the trickiest thing about this now being our careers. Like, at first it was just for fun on the side type of thing, and I think we both feel super blessed and grateful that we get to do this as our careers. We get to pay for the roof over our heads and the camper, or like pay for our food and like make a living, and like I get to hire my mom now, which is so fulfilling. Business element that is kind of contradictory to the creativity, because it can dilute it sometimes, and so it's good to take a step back and like try to go back to, why did I start making videos in the first place, or like, why do I love this? And because sometimes it's like, oh, but we could do this video because it'll probably get more clicks, or it'll get more views, which means more AdSense, which means whatever. But I think you can't fully compromise to that point where you're not doing stuff that's true. And I'm sure all of you guys would be calling us out if we started making stuff that was not true to us, like Walmart challenge or something like that. You'd be like, wait, what are they doing now? They're getting a lot of views, but this isn't them. But anyways, I think anyone out there, like whether you're a fisherman or a creative or not a creative or whatever, I think it's really nice to like set aside the time to like take breaks for yourself and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Just do things that are new. Let's see here. Here's a question from Instagram that is not related to this, but what bands or musicians are you folks currently listening to? I'd love to hear this. You guys listen to a lot of music, I'm sure.
I've been like weirdly, so I've been trying to learn Japanese. It's very early days. Might be a hint about what could be coming down the line. I've been listening to a lot of 70s Japanese folk music. Super random.
Niche.
I also listen to a lot of like Taylor Swift, and Chase and I kind of always listen to a similar rotation of like Coulter Wall and like Sturgill Simpson and kind of, I don't know, Gordon Lightfoot and whatever else, like Townes Van Zandt.
We've got
older country.
We've got pretty eclectic taste. Both of us come from backgrounds of more extreme music, hardcore punk music, heavy metal music, death metal, black metal, punk, thrash metal, like pretty extreme stuff when we were young in our teens and early 20s, and then transitioning more into old blues and country and singer-songwriter folk music, outlaw country, that kind of stuff. That's mostly what's on the rotation these days, but we're big just lovers of music in general. So like Amy said, like, yeah, Taylor Swift is in the rotation too. Like we're up for anything that makes us feel something good, and that could be super niche Japanese folk music, or it could be pop music. You know, we're over long musical journeys, we've learned never to like turn our nose up at something just because it doesn't sound like it would be cool or whatever.
Taylor for me is like work music, and I don't really know why, but I think it just like makes me feel happy, and I can like super focus on what I'm working on, but I like know all the lyrics, and like I'm like kind of like dancing while I'm working. Like I don't know, it's just like a good vibe for me, and it works. It can't be like too overly distracting. But also, I feel like you and I drive in silence a lot. I think that could be, like, as people that listen to music constantly, like we had a crazy vinyl collection. We would listen to records when we got home from work. And I think I think it has a lot to do with us living in a small space together. We're together all the time. And when we're driving, that is one of the few times where you're typically not working, but like it's quiet time to just process and think. And we're both kind of in our own worlds. I'm driving, Chase in the passenger seat. He's researching stuff on his phone. He's like off in some other world doing something. I'm like daydreaming about some project that I want to do, or thinking about film photography,
the
or
Grizzly
like
Maze.
Exactly. So like quiet time is really nice to just like go wherever you need to go in your brain. And we've got a 3-hour drive, and like sometimes it's complete silence the whole time with like random thoughts between the two of us.
Part of it, part of that could just be the changing landscape with phones and screens. It's kind of like we're always being bombarded by some kind of media, which wasn't true 10 years ago, or like, you had plenty of silent time already, or time away from screens. So it was a real treat to come home and listen to music or watch TV or something. But
for us, like creatively though, like we've noticed we really need to fully recharge. Like you need time to be thinking about nothing, to just be like wandering around in your own brain. And that is pretty hard to find. Constantly consuming media and stressing about work and thinking about this or that and thinking about money and thinking about where we're going next and where are we parking and how are we, like, where are we sleeping, and there's just so much going on that like I think the driving is like a full, because sometimes there's days where like we have a ton of work to do and you're like, but I have to drive a couple hours to the spot, and you're almost kind of like looking forward to that built-in excuse of like, I can't work, I have to do this thing. And then sometimes there's a deadline and you're working while driving in the passenger seat trying to edit videos on your lap with a t-shirt draped over your computer so the sun isn't on your screen. So we try to avoid that as much as possible, but sometimes you can't escape it.
And when we're not in any of that, we're listening to Raccoon Rodeo.
Yes, let's go. Come on, plug it.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah,
guys, if you didn't know, I'm in a band now. I've been playing music with some buddies for the last year or so, and we just I'm gonna shamelessly drop this into the chat.
Yeah. Let's go.
If anyone wants to watch, we just put our first song out. Go drop a comment. We don't have anything on Spotify yet, but what is it? But yeah, check it out. That's it's been really fun. Also, like, creative project that isn't like what I rely on for paying for my house or whatever,
For now, Scotty.
Just wait until I'm a rock star, Amy. But I think there's a great Rick Rubin quote. It's like, most often the hints of inspiration are small. To hear the whispers, the mind must also be quiet. And I think that's, a lot of times for us, it's like we are so screwed as our monkey brains. We're just being bombarded with dopamine from these phones and everything all the time, that it is so hard for us to disconnect from that phone. And really not just the phone, but like the constant stimulation. So like going on a walk without your phone, or like going on a drive without listening to music, it's almost like it hits you so hard. You're like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm like, I can think through stuff in my brain. What a crazy concept. um, but yeah, back to the music thing. I'm looking at my Spotify here. What do I have? I have some stuff that's all over the place. I have Lizzie McAlpine. We've got Goth Babe, his new album. We have Koos, which she was Cous. She had a couple songs in our Hope and High Water film. She's awesome. She's from Colorado. What else have I been listening to? Noah Khan, Turnpike, Red Clay Strays. Is that what they're called? Yeah. There's a really cool band called Slaughter Beach Dog that I like. I know. It's a funny name. Yeah, I feel like my music's kind of all over the place.
Boy Genius, Phoebe Bridgers.
Phoebe's good. Boy Genius.
We listen to like Built to Spill pretty often. I've been on a real like saves the day, like Get Up Kids, like old school stuff I used to listen to in like high school, middle school. So any kids in their 30s at least might know what I'm talking about. Jesus and Mary Chain. That's a pretty old one. What's that one?
There you go. Yeah, it's fun. I feel like music is like such an integral part of our lives, especially with films, that we just consume a lot of it. Like it's like the feeling you get of a song or hearing a song, you want to a lot of times portray that into a film. That's like how I started, and I think you too, Chase, with like skateboarding films at least. You just find like a cool track, and you're just like, I need to fit this with visuals. But there's a Wildfly Productions playlist too on Spotify if you guys ever want to check it out. There's too many songs in there, but there's a lot of music.
People always ask us for Tight Loops playlists.
Do it.
We're never gonna make one.
I might make one. You like Japanese folk music and Taylor Swift?
It's funny seeing Alex shout out Atlantic Thrills. That's a super niche little local Providence band.
No way.
Knew the members of and asked to use one of their songs in Northern Exposure. But yeah, that's cool that people can discover like real small indie bands like that through our work.
Dude, that's the fun part too, is like connecting with these small indie bands or artists and then being able to promote their music on our platform of like, this song would work perfectly. I want more people to hear about them, Yeah,
I mean, that's another tricky thing about just production in general and wanting to make sure that other artists are getting fairly compensated for stuff. 10 years ago when the internet was still fresh and video making platforms weren't hip to this kind of stuff and there weren't copyright strikes and you could just use whatever, it was great. You could put as much like of your own personal musical taste and flair into stuff as you wanted. But nowadays you got to spend money to license music. We're often using royalty-free licensing websites, which, it's great now as compared to what it was 5 years ago where you were really kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. There's lots of good music, but a lot of the stuff that we might listen to in our free time, the bigger acts, we just can't afford to have in our videos. And if we put them in our videos, our work will get demonetized and then we won't see any returns from it, which, I don't know. I think these days, most people are like pretty familiar with that conversation around that kind of stuff. It's sort of ubiquitous. People know that videos get demonetized and you have to license music. But if you didn't know, a lot of times if we just want to use a song that we really like and we think would fit well in a video, we have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to be able to use it. Licensing fees are ridiculous for songs. Even with friendly hookups, if you might know someone in a band, sometimes it still costs thousands and thousands of dollars to use a 20-second snippet of a song in a video. You didn't even have thousands of dollars to make the whole video for. A complication of film production for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was pretty proud of the soundtrack in Hope and High Water. I felt really good about that. It's like there's obviously stems and like certain little just instrumentals, but the bigger songs in the film I was really stoked about. I also wanted to feel like movie like in that sense. So
Yeah, that was cool. It paid off that we had some friends in high places who are great musicians. Were interested in collaborating with us on that project. People either licensed music to us for an affordable rate, or were willing to have their music featured for free. And we got to use like not just music that would work, but music that we were really like excited about having in from musicians that we really like.
Yeah.
And that can have a huge effect on the feel of a film when you're not just using suitable music, but you're using good music. You know,
Right.
that's just on its own. People are going to be psyched to listen to that music, and it serves as more than just sort of a background score. It really like sets the mood for a piece. So that was pretty cool.
Dude, like, because growing up, when I was getting into fly fishing, the stoke of like going fishing that next day, a lot of times was like throwing on songs that we had seen in ski films or fishing films,
Right.
and you were like, "Oh, this is from that movie," and like those visuals are kind of going through your head. So it's cool now to like the ending song, that Bendigo Fletcher song. It's called "Sleeping Pad." I've wanted to use that for so long, and it's just been on like one of my Wildfly like films playlists forever, and it finally worked. So I was like, yes, finally got the moment. So yeah, if you guys, everyone who's still sticking around, if you guys haven't seen the film already, we've been talking about Hope and High Water, our new film. It's available on our website, wild-fly.com/movie, through a pay what's fair model. So, you know, this has been like a self-funded project, and yeah, we wanted it to be funded by you guys, the community. So any of you guys that want to go watch it, it'll eventually be on YouTube, but if you go check it out and watch it right now for as low as $1. So just pay whatever you think is fair. There was one question I wanted to ask before we wrapped things up that someone had asked. They said, what was your biggest takeaway from the trip? And it could also, I think, be from the trip and just this project in general, now that we've had a little time to
I think
release it.
mine is probably, I feel like this is often how I look at projects, but mine is more of like a bigger picture thing. And I feel like my biggest takeaway is that doing projects collaboratively, like with people, like, you know, Chase and I work as a team all the time. And for us to get out of that comfort zone and to work with a friend, but work with someone new and just explore what that looked like and learn from each other, that was an incredibly rewarding process. And that doing live premieres and being able to meet people who love us and support us and build an even stronger community, that was also incredibly rewarding and something that I think we want to continue to do in the future. There's so much of our lives, you know, we're pretty isolated, and to be able to interact with people in person was like, it seemed kind of weird to talk about it as like, wow, like what a concept, but like it's like how things used to be. Like you'd go to an in-person event, like you go to a gallery show or a live music event, and I just think there's a connection that's made there that's really special.
Yeah, everything's better with company and the power of community. I think probably coming off the heels of 2020 and the COVID pandemic and isolation and all that stuff, you know, we're still like remembering how good it is to just like do things with other people, you know,
Yeah,
which I
right.
kind of forgot what that was like for a couple of years. We're past that at this point, but still kind of like rediscovering how much better things can be with other people, be it your friends or new friends or strangers or whatever. So yeah, I think working on a project together, yeah, the takeaway is just like it's better doing stuff with other people's better.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that every single project can be like that. We're still going to be doing
I
a
think
bunch of
there's
stuff on our own, but
a lot of growth that came with it, though. Growth
Yeah.
personally and in our work, and just learning from each other is a really special thing. And, you know, there's challenges with working with other people too. And I think just learning how to navigate that and coming out the other side with something that we're all really proud of. But like at the end of the day, like we're a bunch of friends that got together to make a project, and like, I don't know, you just become better friends. I think that's the real main thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like such a cool project in general. Just like we've been trying to hang out more, so we all got like much closer during the project. We got to make something really cool. Then we got to share that thing with a bunch of people in person and celebrate it that way, and got to hang out again, you know, during the film premieres. and then we'll eventually get to share it on YouTube, and like that's gonna spark, or it has already sparked all these other ideas and potential more collaboration that we'll do in the future. Just like I don't know, just yeah. I don't really have much else to add to that, except for it was nice being like a stubborn, flaky artist, and sometimes being very like stuck in my ways. It was nice to just like have the dialogue back and forth and hear, I've got ideas about like business or film or this project, and then hearing what you guys think about it, and like there's a different way to think about it than just what's in your head, Scotty.
Yeah, other people's perspective in the end will make the work stronger. Even if it's not at all how you would do something, collaboration like always makes the work stronger.
And for me personally, it was so different than how Chase and I work on post-production. Like Chase, everything's in his head, the story's in his head. I've filmed during the making of the project, but like so much of that is on his plate on the back end. This was the first time that I was really like involved in that process from start to finish. And for me, it gave me a lot more confidence in my own opinions on editing things or audio things, or like I just got to be much more involved, which was a great learning experience for me, which is something I was hopeful would be the case, but you never know how it's going to go. And I think having that experience has just made me a stronger filmmaker overall. So
yeah, absolutely. I wish we could like bottle up that weekend in Denver with the whole crew and just like have that in a bottle that we could just take whenever. 'Cause that was like such an amazing weekend with the whole team and like our buddy JD, and just celebrating with people in Denver. So yeah, it's really cool, guys. And thanks to everyone who joined in, whether you've been on for a couple minutes, or the whole time. Has anyone made it the whole time? I wonder if anyone's made it, because you're
who's here that was
crazy.
here at the very beginning.
There's no way we're that interesting.
We can all talk forever.
Yeah.
If you want to listen to us talk longer, there's podcasts, multiple. So all about this project and this process. And,
yeah, it's been super fun. The podcasts, guys, go listen to those. Those are on our podcast channel. Go watch the Tight Loops Baja film. It's truly incredible. It's one of the best things I've seen on YouTube, period. I still can't believe it exists on YouTube. Chase, you did an incredible job on the edit. And yeah, if you guys haven't already, go check out Hope and I Water, and it'll eventually be on YouTube, but not for a little bit. But yeah, just thanks again for being here, guys, and supporting us and being along for the journey.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah,
Love you.
Any other closing thoughts?
No. Love you, Scotty. Love everyone out there listening.
Love
thank
you too.
you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Look at the balloons.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Why did it do that?
Why did it do that? It just knew. It's technology, dude.
Signs?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, thanks again there, everyone who tuned in. We really appreciate you guys. Love all you for supporting us and everything. Lots of cool things coming from both of us. We're taking some time to work on it. What's that?
I guess we have a whole merch line
Oh, that's
too.
right.
Seen it.
That's right. Yeah, we've been wearing it this whole time. We haven't even said anything. Yeah, Chase and Amy designed this whole merch collection, which is on our website. You guys should go check it out. It's some really cool stuff. It's probably cool. I think it's like our best shit we've released yet. Super 8 design.
If you look it out on the website, you can actually see the designs. There's a handful of them.
There's a handful. Well, while we're here, let's just
plug.
This is also important.
I don't even know if this is gonna work. Yeah, it's not gonna work. It's fine, guys. I haven't eaten dinner yet, and it's like
We haven't
almost,
either.
yeah, it's late.
It's later than where you are, so.
Yeah.
But sweet, this is fun. Maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we won't. But we appreciate you all. Chase and Amy, you'll have an incredible night. We'll see you
Thanks,
guys
you
soon.
too. Bye.